Good evening, everybody. Hello, my name's Sophia Hall. I'm the Director of Programming here at Queensland Theatre. I'm just going to start, importantly, by acknowledging that we're gathered here on the lands of the Yagara and the Turrbal people. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and we recognise that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And with that important statement, I'm now going to look at something else that's quite extraordinary tonight. Look how many artists there are on the stage with me. Who said COVID meant you had to do casts of 2 and 3? This feels like going back to the years of a company like this where we used to do lots of shows with large casts. So it's really thrilling for me to be on the stage with all these extraordinary people. And now you might also notice that it's not Lee hosting tonight. Well, she's not hosting because she directed this show. So we're going to kind of tag team from either end. But before we do, I just would like everybody on my left and her right to introduce themselves and to tell you what role they're playing on this show. Colin.
Hi, I'm Colin Smith and I'm playing Dr. Frank Gibbs.
Hi, hello, Roxanne MacDonald. I'm playing Joe Crowell, Cy Crowell, and Mrs. Soames.
I'm Libby Munro. I'm playing Julia Gibbs, Doc Gibbs's wife.
Hello, I'm Sylvan Russ, and I'll be playing Constable Warren.
I'm Andrew Buchanan. I'm playing Professor Willard and Sam Craig.
Hello, I'm Hugh Parker, and I'm playing Charles Webb.
G'day, I'm Anthony Standish, and I'm playing Simon Stimson.
Hello. Okay. I'm Egan Sunbin, and I'll be playing Howie Newsom.
Who's the milkman?
Yes.
I'm Lucy Heathcote, and I'll be playing Emily Webb.
Hey, I'm Jaden Popick, and I'm playing George Gibbs.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Barney, and I will be playing the stage manager.
Hello, I'm Angus Freer and I'll be playing Wally Webb.
Hi, I'm Mia Foley and I'm playing Rebecca Gibbs.
Hi, I'm Ava Ryan and I'm also playing Rebecca Gibbs.
Hi, I'm Luca Klarwan and I also play Wally Webb.
Hello, I'm Amy La Palmer and I'm playing Myrtle Webb.
Hi, I'm Natalie Reiner. I'm the costume designer.
Hello, I'm The Sweats, and I'm playing the composer and sound designer.
Hi, I'm Paul Jackson. I'm the lighting designer.
Hi, I'm Pete Sutherland. Jimmy might be playing the stage manager, but I am the actual stage manager.
Hi, I'm Margaret, and I'm the assistant stage manager.
And hi, it's lovely to see you all. I'm Lee, for those of you I haven't met, and I will be doing more than playing the director. I'll actually be doing that once we get going.
Indeed. So I'm going to flip the first question to Lee, because Lee, why our town?
Honestly, this many actors. That's why. In May, June last year, when we were putting together the idea of what 21 could be as a season, we knew we were going to have potentially a whole industry of people who hadn't worked for a year, and so we wanted a play that would allow as many artists on the stage as we could. And one also, this popped into my head also because it didn't require a huge production budget, so I could spend all the money we had on people rather than a set. So it was a pragmatic decision, but as a director, you can't just make pragmatic decisions, so it had to be a work that meant a lot to me as well. And this play is very close to my heart. I would have wanted to do it anyway sometime in the next 10 years because I love it deeply. But I never imagined that this would be the start. Yeah. So it matters. That's why.
Yeah. I think it's an extraordinary moment for actors across this country and across the world, there are still some who haven't worked for months and months to be able to be back into a room and for artists to be together making something. I'm actually going to start with one of the youngest members of cast. You may have noticed that Luca's surname may be familiar to you. Can someone make sure Luca has a microphone? So Luca is, yes, indeed, Jason Clarwine's son. And some of you will know Jason Clarwine because he's done a few shows with us over the years. And what's lovely about this show is it crosses so many generations of humans and the storytelling. And we've got 4 artists. Can you put your hands up, the 4 of you who are in our Young Artists Ensemble? So these 4 artists are in our Young Artists Ensemble. So they're getting an opportunity not just to be part of Young Artists Ensemble led by Travis Dowling and Laura Collins and our youth and education team, but also to be in a main stage show at Queensland Theatre. Luca, what's it been like being in the kind of in and amongst this type of range of extraordinary artists?
It's been beautiful. Like, this play is so amazing. Like, especially like in an environment like this, like especially after COVID and everything like that. Like, it's good to start off this year with a play where everyone is close and tight as a community.
And do you just play Wally, or are you,
I
without
also
giving
play
too much away?
Man in the Box, which is up in the audience. But yeah, I've been mostly connecting with Wally Webb. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Now, I'm going to ask another couple of questions, and then Lee might have some questions she'd like to ask the people between us, and then we'll throw it open to you, as we usually do. So please start to think about what questions you might want to ask this extraordinary group, because we won't necessarily get to all of them, because it might be a while. But I think it's interesting what Lee said about not needing a massive production budget, because Thornton Wilder actually wrote in the notes of this play that it has no set. He specifically designed, he wrote in the script that there's no set. So this isn't us just being a bit slow getting bumped in. There is no set on this show. So if you don't have a set, obviously you're creating a world, and a lot of that world is created by these extraordinary performers. I'm going to ask Amy if you could ask her this question, if someone can get you a microphone. Just what's it like when you're making a world, you have costumes, but you're effectively making a kind of physical world in the process of rehearsals?
I'd be lying if I didn't say it wasn't very fun. There's a lot of invention that happens, and a lot that it's kind of a sort of magic that happens when you endow something that shouldn't make sense into what you want it to be. And if everyone believes you, then that object is what you want it to be, and we all agree and we all move on. And it's kind of this wonderful thing where, as performers, we all look each other in the eye and decide it's true and make our merry way. And it's been a sort of freeing experience, I think, for me personally. I don't know about anyone else, but it just means that you know that there's play allowed at all times, because you are constantly creating. The rules are different. And because of that, you just kind of have this sort of joyous experience of seeing trees, seeing beans where there are no beans. But this place is full of things for me now. And I believe it will be for the audience too, because we see that world. And it might be the personal world that you have at home, or whatever it is that conjures up in your mind as you go along. But it's very real to us, and hopefully will be to you too.
Because, of course, we're actually not creating an unfamiliar space. For those of you who don't know the play, it's about 2 families living next door to each other in a small country town. And yes, it's originally set in America, but when I imagine it, I'm just imagining the small town I grew up in. It feels very local to me, it feels very present, so I'm imagining the things that we had at home, and I think you're imagining the things you had at home. And I put the challenge out to the cast very early on that they could come up with different ways to create different objects in the play, because Thornton Wilder specifies mime quite a lot. And I like a little bit of mime, but not a whole lot of mime. So we tried to invent other versions. Essentially, in having no set and in stripping back the production, he was trying to hit the reset button on Broadway. People were used to going to see shows with huge, spectacular sets, and he was trying to remind people of what theatre's really about. He was saying, if you got good words and good actors, you don't really need a lot more, which is slightly petrifying, for both actors and directors nowadays, because usually we have a lot more bells and whistles and, you know, revolves and things like that. But when you take all of that away, ultimately, and we get back to the story, I don't know, there's nothing as magic for me as a beautiful actor in the middle of a stage inventing something and we all go along for the ride. I am going to say, when you do come and see the play, there is one of the most exquisite uses of an egg beater I've ever seen. I'm just going to leave that with you.
And another factor in creating the world is this character of the stage manager that Thornton Wilder wrote into the play. So Jimmy is actually playing, and if someone could get a mic for Jimmy possibly, the stage manager who in a way also creates the world for us and takes us through the entire play. Jimmy, do you want to, I mean, in a way, is the stage manager like the guide for the audience through the introduction to the town? You can say that.
Yeah, he's you know, he breaks the fourth wall, and he has a relationship with the audience. You know, I don't know if you've seen My Name Is Jimmy. It's, you know, there's a lot of similarities in the storytelling and the connection with the audience, and also you know, having connection with the performers as well and moving things along. Yeah, it's, you know.
And he's on stage for very large amounts of time. Yes.
Yes.
You're on for almost the whole time.
Yes, which I am not complaining after the break we had, you know. It's beautiful to be up here, eh? Wow, and seeing you, you know, seeing all you looking down, this is home right here. So, yeah, you know, it's just exciting, and you know, like Lucas said, you know, coming back, you know, after a break of not, you know, performing and doing what we love as storytellers, this is a perfect show to come because the stage manager is a storyteller, you know, and you know, I think, you know, Lee has guided me in that area to carry on with the storytelling, and you know, hopefully you will have a great night of storytelling. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to go back to the question of no set, because whilst there isn't a set, there are costumes. And Nat, if you could grab a mic. So Natalie Reiner is actually our head of wardrobe here at Queensland Theatre. So she has played a phenomenal part in so many of the shows that you have seen, but invisibly so, because what the head of wardrobe does is really support the person designing the costumes and often guide them or give them ideas or do large parts of their job for them sometimes. So Nat is, it's great to actually have Nat being the designer on this show. And in a way, Nat, you're doing this without a set designer. And how's that different? Because mostly you either have one person designing both, or you have two different people, one on set and one on costumes. So how's it been different?
Well, I guess with a set, the set is the world, and then costumes and the actors fill the world. So the world now is the theatre. So to me, that's something I know very well. So yeah, I'm not very good at answering questions like this.
No, but
yes.
This play really started in a conversation between Nat and myself, because again, going back to May, June, it was a question of what do we think we can do? And I said to Nat, well, if we did this, would you be cool to design it? And she was like, yeah. And we started that conversation. At a certain point, we got to the point where we kind of go, we think we can do this without a set designer in the space. Now, it's going to be over to you to judge and see if that's worked. I don't know. But a lot of the detail about who these people are comes from small decisions in the costumes. I have to say, when we first started rehearsal, when everybody got up on the floor and started moving around, it took me a couple of hours to get used to seeing that many people in a room again. I was used to a couple, 2 or 3, in this cautious space when it came to bodies. Suddenly 16 people moving around at speed. I went, oh, wow. And I think what I'm looking forward to is that for all of you as well, seeing all that detail. We've been used to stories being told to us in very simple ways over the last few months, or a screen where we're just getting a limited amount of information. But bit by bit, Nat and I are building in so many details. And as the actors are settling into the space, they're going, oh, what about this and what about that? I'm like, yep. So this is about a density of a lot of detail. Does that make sense, Nat?
It just keeps building, and as it develops, the costumes develop, the characters develop. Yeah, it'll be ongoing right till the end, till we open.
We're not stopping when we open, just so you know. We'll find more things.
I'm going on holidays.
No, you're in the building. Yes, you're in the building.
I don't know if you know that these guys started rehearsals on the 28th of December, so I don't think, Nat, you had much of a Christmas break, did you? So does anyone, before we keep going with questions between us, has anyone got a question they're really itching or burning to ask that's already... Yes, we do. I'll repeat it so that everyone can hear it.
We've been subscribing to QCC for many years, and I can't think of any other play where there's been no set. There's been lots of minimal sets, so that's a first. Can some of the more experienced actors comment on whether they've ever done a show with no set and what their thoughts are in relation to that?
I'll quickly repeat the question whilst perhaps Hugh, if you're thinking about an answer to that. But so the question... See what I did there? So the question was that this gentleman's been a subscriber for the company for a really long time and couldn't recall another show that actually was prescribed to not have a set, and was asking if one of the more experienced actors with the company, who's been with the company for a while, might recall another show that had no set. I was flipping it to Hugh, but if anyone else wants to answer it.
They do exist, but I suppose really those sorts of things end up being on the ascendancy as you're trying to learn. So they might be while you're in a college space or an independent space, a fringe show, something like that, a cooperative, where it's really about making sure you can afford the rights and you can get it in front of people rather than having to manufacture something. But as Lee said, this was a very definite choice. It's not just, hey, how do we afford, because at the time that wasn't a consideration. How do we pare back one thing in order to afford something else, which is lots of artists on a stage together. It was an absolute theatrical choice. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes, if you look at what happens, for example, at Shakespeare's Globe over in the UK, they've got the framework and the stage around them, and the rest of the time it's just what you can carry on. It's natural light, and none of that storytelling, in my opinion, is deeply affected or wounded by the fact that there's not a big chandelier in the middle of it and lots of stuff coming on. But no, it's a rarity. But and the miming that's described as well. I mean, that's not being prescribed as being perfect, because I think that also would draw attention. The fact that a certain set of circumstances have been put in place. If all of a sudden all of us were just minutely wonderful mime artists, that would jar in some way too. So it's all part of the big scheme. Don't worry, the majority of the miming really is beautiful. But no, it's a rarity. It's a rarity to be on a stage this empty.
Yes, it was a very distinctive choice, that, as Leon, you've said, that Wilder was making, which was about changing something that he'd seen and taking a new step towards the confidence in the kind of the suspension of disbelief, the kind of imaginary world that great artists can do for us without the bells and whistles.
We do have some bells and whistles.
You do have beautiful bells and whistles.
Yes, the lighting bells and the sound whistles.
Thank
we definitely
you for
have.
the segue. Paul Jackson, the lighting bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So I suppose, at the risk of being unimaginative, it's a similar question as the one I asked Nat, is that when you're lighting a space as distinct from lighting a set and lighting bodies in that space, do you come at it from a different way of thinking, or is it the same type of conversation you're having with the director and the world?
Look, I do come at it from a slightly different direction. It's more about kind of holding the performance in a space, so creating a kind of little visual bubble that the thing can float in, whereas you would normally be doing that by kind of articulating the set around the performers as well. It feels a lot more like doing dance, really, in many ways. So most of the bare stage work I do is contemporary dance. So getting bodies to kind of float in a space is more of a dance way of approaching things. So it feels more like that, I think, really.
Thank you. Lee, did you want to add something?
And I have to say, when we got to this place where Nat was like, yeah, I'm up for it, and we're like thinking, okay, this is the play to put in at the top of the year, Paul was my safety net in saying, I'm working with a huge number of artists I haven't worked with before, and I'm trying to take them on a journey where we have to create a world out of nothing. I just needed one person where I knew he would know how to light this kind of world. So I just went, hey, Paul. And it's an interesting thing for me. I love working with people I haven't worked with before, but sometimes that little bit of familiarity can just actually help get you over the line in really panic-stricken moments. And that sense of what it is to sculpt a space. This is such a beautiful little theatre. And it's at the very beginning of its journey with the community that it exists for. So it feels like a very first carving it out with the bare walls visible. So I haven't given you very much to work with, but I've given you space. So thank you for leaping in.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Have we got any more questions from... Oh, yeah, up here. I'll repeat the question for you before, it's just so people over here can hear it. So the question was it difficult to choreograph? Because it's a relatively small space with a lot of humans and no real markers in the way of a set. So I don't know if any of the performers or Lee, you want to take that?
I think I'm going to push that over to Libby Munro. What's it like to be moved around in it and to start to create space?
I haven't found it difficult as a performer. I feel like we established the relationships between each other and our characters, and so we stayed sort of in that proximity. I do think that it's been quite a big job for Lee. Like, I think, you know, particularly making noise or pulling focus or, you know, those kind of actorly references are quite important in this because we're trying to tell a story, and so she is trying to direct your eye to where you need to be looking, and I think that is a very intricate dance, and that's the beauty of directing, I think. We play our part in there and we try to, you know, show up when we're supposed to and create that world and then be a part of the ensemble in the rest of it. And that's actually a really beautiful experience to have, because sometimes you have the experience of just having connection with one other actor or with your audience, but this is about the ensemble. This is about all of those bodies in the space and creating connections with all of them at some stage in the show. And that's quite a beautiful thing and a unique experience for all of us to have this many people to connect with and establish a story with while we're on stage.
They also have to put up with me and nitpicking about tiny details. Like, they're doing amazing work and, you know, yes, of course, that's great. And I'll say, hey, Libby, can you not point your thumb like that when you say that? Like, there are 16 people on stage and I'm going, just her thumb, that's not working for me. So everybody's got to put up with me in, like, tiny detail moments. You know, Jimmy's lifting up this three-hour show, you know, and I'm going, oh, Jimmy, actually, the Coke bottle, can you tuck it in your pocket then at exactly that moment? And they're all being incredibly patient because, yes, it is actually about bringing the focus to different people at different times. Yeah.
And Lee, I've got another question for you, which you might want to involve one of the actors. So obviously you've heard, you know, in the way everyone's talking about it, it's a work of beautiful sense of community, there's a connection, there's joy. There's also humour in the show, and there are moments that are very funny too. Or you could take them as funny. So how does humour work in a show that in lots of ways has a very gentle touch?
Look, honestly, I've forgotten what's funny and what's not at this point. I'm looking at so much stuff that it's usually this funny thing happens to me when an audience comes in. I'd forgotten what struck me as funny or struck me as difficult when I first read it. I'm just making the thing now. And I'm too far in it to imagine how people will respond when they see it for the first time.
So effectively, that was a very unfair question to ask a director when she's just on the brink of Tech Week.
No, but maybe it's interesting because most of the actors are on for most of the show, on stage sitting and actually watching. So Andrew Buchanan actually watches the show about as closely as I do. You would probably have a sense of what's funny because your responses are much like being an audience So how has the humour evolved for you over the course of the last few weeks?
I think what's great is it's a great ensemble, and so we feel very comfortable with one another, and we can be interacting with one another in a fairly relaxed way. So it's like we're sitting around a table and throwing ideas around. So if we're listening to each other, ideas occur, and things can be thrown backwards and forwards, and I think we feel comfortable. I know with Jimmy and I, we get an opportunity to sometimes ad-lib a little bit between one another and make each other laugh, and there's that opportunity to do that. But there are some definitely very funny moments in the play. This it's going, and yeah, it's full of life. It's a great light and great shadow, and I think the play is. I think you just got to listen and play. So I think we've just been sitting here, being open to each other and accepting each other's offers.
There are a lot of funny, I wouldn't call it comedy, but observational humour that comes from Thornton Wilder. You've got mums and dads and kids, and just seriously the ridiculous comedy that happens in everybody's houses in the morning trying to get the kids out to school. Yeah, the coming home at the end of the day, the odd bits of conversation. It's little fragments of life which are funny because we recognise them as being true. You kind of go, oh yeah, I think I've had that exact conversation with my mum. One of my favourite moments in the play is when Emily says to her mum, "Mama, were you pretty?" And you just go, I can feel, I actually feel kind of guilty because I'm pretty sure I did that to my mum. And that moment where you kind of have to hear what your kids say and take the blow and actually come back from that, I find that that little moment very funny. It's not a comedy moment, but it's a human comedy, which I think is my favourite.
Thank you. Has anyone else got another? Hello, yes. So the question was that the lady who's speaking said she was feeling anxious about the idea that was no set and was wondering if there was a particular expectation on you for the actors. And I mean, Jimmy spoke about the fact that he breaks the fourth wall, so he speaks directly to the audience. But I think the majority of you are in the world of the play, not speaking to the audience. So it's like watching another type of play that you might see on a set. There's only one person who's necessarily speaking to you. But Lee, do you want to pick that up?
I think what Thornton Wilder was trying to do, and that's what I'm trying to recreate, I think, is a belief that there can be great beauty without that being physically built. That we can be transported with words and a shaft of light and emotion of an actor. So I think he's asking us as an audience to trust him. And bit by bit, he pulls us into the world. It starts out looking not much. And honestly, I'm trying to push that. Like, I can tell you about this because you come to these things all the time. I'm trying to push the feeling of disappointment when people come in. Getting there? Yeah? Yeah. Because that was, in the original production, which was in 1938 on Broadway, so the world sort of knew it was headed towards World War II, having survived the war to end all wars. They knew it was coming, and when people picked up their tickets from the box office and went in, there were stories about how many people went out to the box office and said, "Where's the play?" Because there was no curtain, there was nothing on the stage, and there were just a couple of ladders propped against the walls. And they were like, well, there can't be a play on because there's no set. And essentially, it's become the most loved play in America. In a regular year, not last year, there would be a performance of Our Town on every night of the year somewhere in America. It is the most performed play, and there's a mystery, there's a great mystery inside that. So with nothing, apart from words on a page, he has pulled the whole nation into a great love affair with this story. And I think there's a mystery inside that, which is quite wonderful, and I want to see if we can do the same thing. I've been talking to an American academic who's just written a book about 21st century productions, and he's gutted that he can't get on a plane and come and see this, because he believes it's not an American play anymore. It's a play for the world about reminding us of the importance of values that we've lost. So he's very curious about how the rest of the world meets this play. So I think what he's asking for and what I'm asking for, and what I definitely asked all the actors for as they signed on, was to trust the play. Great playwrights can take us to extraordinary places, and I think that's the journey of this play. By the end of the play, you will have experienced a rich theatrical world, and there's no way you would anticipate that when you first walk in.
And also we do have not only a costume designer and a lighting designer, as we've already articulated, but we also have a composer and sound designer. So the Sweats, I wonder if you could just speak, because it's a balance, isn't it, of newly composed, you're a composer in your own right, and so it's a balance of newly composed music and sourcing extant or choosing existing music.
Yes, that is that is correct. Thornton Wilder specifies several bits of music throughout the play, so and they're in public domain, which is lovely. So yeah, there's some old classics, there's some hymns, there's some live singing on stage by the actors. Then I've licensed some other pieces of music by more contemporary musicians. There's a John Hopkins cover of a Tom York track that comes later in the piece. I was also heavily inspired by Aaron Copland, who wrote the score of the film back in the 40s, wasn't it? And he actually won the Academy Award for Best Score. So there's some beautiful music from Aaron Copland. And then I wrote a piano theme before rehearsals started, which recurs throughout the show and gets progressively slower and lower as the play goes along. So I don't know, I come from a DJing background, so I like to mix music so it goes on this little beautifully harmonically mixed kind of journey throughout the play, so you don't know where my music starts and ends, hopefully.
And I think it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, that we're trying to be deeply faithful to the play, even though the surface of it may not look like it. He is in the pantheon of theatre gods. I think this is the greatest play of the American 20th century. It's personal taste, yes, but I think what he does to an audience is extraordinary. The starting place for this play and the way it transformed the country across the 83 years since it was written. We're trying to be very faithful to it. I'm not trying to break his play. I'm not interested in that. I think what he had to say in 1938 rings very true now, and especially after the year we've had, the reminder that the most important thing we can do is love the people closest to us and cherish the small moments. I think that's something we all need to just hear, because I think we all believe it again.
So we've got time for some more questions before we get to the important raffle draw. Just for this one over here.
What? You just have to trust me.
So the observation was about the ladders and the concern that it might be a bit boring if everything was on the flat surface. So you're wondering if they're going to be climbing the ladders. Is that your hope?
I will be. Yes, I will be climbing one of those ladders. But yeah, I think theatre is it's like a magic trick, isn't it? You bring forth a world to an audience, and we can't believe that becomes apparent to us, that new world that we would have been oblivious to. But what we're actually doing here, even though we might be a little concerned about the minimalism of the set, but what I think Thornton Wilder is doing is making us see a magic trick of doing theatre, and also making us aware that we're doing a magic trick, and then at the end of the play still being astounded by what we see. So I think we should have no fear.
No, I do want you to be incredibly happy and satisfied at the end of the play. If I have a want, it's that. I don't want you to go out thinking, well, that it felt like there was not enough there. But we're starting in a really tricky place, yeah.
Any more questions? Yes? So there's a question for how the actors found not having a set to use or to even to lean on, and the suggestion was one of the young actors could take it, but I'd also like to direct it to Roxanne up here, who's a slightly less young actor, before we go to the young actors, just only slightly less young.
I do have to say that Roxanne has been involved in the Thornton Wilder production of Queensland Theatre, which was Skin of Our Teeth, I believe.
Yes.
And you played the sex symbol in Skin of Our Teeth.
Oh, yes,
and now
I did.
that was Pete Sutherland, our stage manager's first show with the company. And in that show, it was Jason Clarwine's first production. So there's a little, there's a little bit of theatre history in there. Sorry, jump on in, Roxanne.
Great big theatre family there, we all coming back together.
How is it not having things to lean on?
Oh,
or
I
to
don't have
use?
things to lean on, I have things to sit on. Which is lovely, yeah. I really like that there is no set. Sure, maybe, we may feel a little bit at the beginning like, we need something to be around, or have something sort of to, encompass us or something. But I really like it because it sort of frees you up as well. It frees you up to walk wherever, walk where you want to walk, but within the sort of constraints of the lighting and everything like that. But it's that there are unknown marks, actual marks we have to stand on, to be in this place, or to be behind something. So I think I only go off stage, I think, once during the show, but to me, I just think it's, I reckon it's fantastic. It's just a really freeing, feeling as an actor.
Thank you. And I'd like to, if one of the younger artists, but also perhaps Lucy or Jayden, if you want to answer the question as well. I'm going to spread this around a bit just to kind of get the different perspectives. So who's got the mic in the... Great. Do you want to grab that one as well, about what it's like for you not having a set?
Us?
Yeah.
Well, in a way, it's kind of like being thrown in the deep end, but it's still, because a lot of modern theatre and a lot of the theatre that we learn, especially as part of the Young Artist Ensemble, which we all are, a lot of it is very minimalist. So it's taught us a lot of skills about how to sort of improvise and how to show to the audience what you're doing without actually having to have the thing there. And there's so many amazing skills that we've learnt, especially with being with such an amazing cast. And there's so many people that we can learn from in this cast. So in a way, it's been tricky because we don't have anything to rely on, but it's still a great experience for how to sort of build our skills. Yeah.
And Jayden or Lucy, does one of you want to take that? Yeah, you're kind of earlier in your careers. So, who's got a microphone they can pass down to those guys? Thank you. Go on, Jayden. Go on, Jayden. We've just seen you on a really interesting set in Mouthpiece at the Playhouse. So,
I guess. Well, that was all various levels. It was a set, and there was various levels to play with. But it being a various black boxes, I was creating the things in my head, I guess. So if I was in the living room, putting a living room there. So coming out of that, I'm applying a similar approach to this, really. It's not worrying me at all, because I pretty much just did it in Mouthpiece. I'm just not jumping across gaps of levels.
I promise one day you'll have a set to play on, Jacob. That's I promise. This is very particular to this play, I promise. And in a year when we're going to have one of the biggest sets companies built in Boy Swallow's universe, it seems like a good modest beginning, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say, I've seen a production of this show before, and within a minute you forget that there is a Dissette, because the world that's created by Thornton Wilder and the artists is so quickly the world that you dive into that you forget very quickly that this is something unusual. It just becomes insignificant very quickly.
His stage directions, which the stage manager reads out at the beginning of the play, sets up the geography for the town very clearly. He carves up the space for us, and interestingly, the geography is like so many little towns in Australia, where you got your main street, and then you got the church that's off the main street, the two churches because they're close together, and then there's the train tracks that go that way. And by the time you start doing that, he really directs the play. Says you've got to put the Gibbs house over there and the Webb's house over there. And if you have a look at the script, it's very specific. And if you do what he says, it works.
Andrew, did you want to add something?
I mean, the blank space means it's called our town because it can be anybody's small town. Who came from a small town? I'm from Ipswich. Because there's nothing here, I mean, as Lee said, there's Main Street, the school's there, this church is there, this church. I'm just seeing all the places that I grew up. And it allows you to imprint wherever you're from. And so it makes it very personal in some ways. So it's great in that way. An empty space can be filled with your imagination, and I'm just seeing places that I've been. So the small town is my small town, and it'll be your small town, I think. And that's the beauty of it. It allows infinite possibility.
Thank you. We've probably got time for one more or two more questions. There's many ways to skin a cat, I suppose.
Look, there are many things as this play reaches across time that some people are familiar with and some aren't. We had a very funny moment where, of course, Wally says, what's the line? I'm bright too when I'm looking at my stamp collection. And then we're going along and I suddenly went, have either of you ever used a stamp before? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, so people used to collect stamps. And it was just that funny thing of, it's essentially what he says in the play is this is a record of who we were. And it captures some things, and some things will be lost to actually the need for research to know what people did. But some things haven't changed at all. And I think that's the magic of the play. It's like, you may only have sent one letter in your life, Angus, but there are other things in there that will never change. The way your sister, if you have an older sister, she's always going to be aggravating. And that's the dance that Thornton Wilder is interested in, what you can preserve. There's a beautiful speech in the middle of the play that the stage manager has about putting the play in a cornerstone in the town, along with the Bible, the Constitution, and Shakespeare's plays. And he wants to put this play in so that people 1,000 years from now have a sense of who we are as people now, how we live. And that's what our plays do for us. And he's consciously doing it inside the play, but isn't that what our plays are? Our new plays now are records of us, and 100 years from now, people will know what we thought. I know a little bit about what Americans thought back in the 1930s and maybe at the turn of the century, but I also think they'll know something about us because we did this play in this time, which means it still spoke to us. So it's a way we hand down our human knowledge, I suppose.
Thanks. And we had a question here.
I'm getting a sense
So the question is whether or not the audience is required to interact. Yes. There isn't really any actual request for the audience to interact at all. Do you want to speak to that?
No, there's no, it's not interactive theatre, don't worry, you won't be getting up on stage, but yes, but you will be inventing and giving. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I think so. This is not a play that pushes on you, it's one that invites you in. So you've got to be, you've got to be a bit willing and ready for that. Yeah.
And can I just add, just with the stage and the, what you will find when you do come in is you will connect with the characters too as well. Those are the stories within these two families and all the other characters that surround these two families. You all know them. We all know them. We all know someone there. You will just be connected, and I think that's one of the powerful things that Thornton Wilder wrote. It's for us to actually really see and connect with people and connect with elements and things that are around that we sometimes take advantage of, or we just don't take note of it. And what he pings out is the parts that we're like, oh my gosh, it's right in front of us. Relationship between a human being. Or your relationship with the sun setting or the sun rising, your childhood memory about something, and I think you will be invited, I guess, into the show. It's just really powerful how he wrote this, when he wrote this in 1938, and young lady over there, you did it over in the States, and it's alive today, and it's relevant today, and his writing is actually very universal, and it connects with humanity and our values. And I'm from the Torres Straits, and I connect with this story. It was written over in New York, so it's about us, us as human beings. So I think just to sort of, I guess, share, I guess, what you will be expected is that you will connect with everybody that is sitting here, anyway, I just thought I'd add that.
Yeah. You'll absolutely see yourselves in this, and as Jimmy said, the characters, you'll so connect with them, you'll see people that you know yourself in them, the relationships definitely, but I think for me, the hopes and dreams of the characters, whether or not they're fulfilled or not, definitely by Act 3 you'll know that, and I think you'll want to bring some tissues along for that act at the very least.
But no spoilers. So I think we're probably coming close to the time to draw the raffle. So I wonder if you could get your tickets out ready. And I think we have, there's Marnie. So she's going to bring it across. And then whoever's got a microphone near that can call out the number. Angus, do you want to call it out?
D88.
What colour?
Orange.
Yay!
Congrats.
So you've actually won. You've won a subscription to our digital play club season for the whole year. So you'll get 6 play clubs that you get because they're now a subscription, a part of our subscription season for 21. So you'll get to watch all of them with whoever's in your living room with you. That's part of our digital series for 2021. And before I ask you to join me in thanking these extraordinary people on my left, I'm just going to give you one reminder that our 2021 season is now on sale. So if you haven't got your subscription packages for the year, many of the people who are here with us tonight are regular and long-term subscribers of the company. And so just to encourage you to jump in and have a look, see which package you Oh, I've just lost my sound for a second there. But yeah, which package you're interested in getting. We've got brochures out in the foyer if you want to remind yourself of the shows. And it's a beautiful mix of some of the plays we sadly lost in 2020 with some brand new works, with Return to the Dirt, which is the Queensland Premier's Drama Award winner. Lee mentioned Boy Swallows Universe. We have White Pearl, which is a really tight story from STC and Riverside Theatre of Parramatta. We've got Prima Facie, also directed by Lee. We've got Robin Archer ending the year with a special event. I've probably missed one and then spoiled it all that I've missed one really important one. But it's a really rich palette. So now, just to finish off tonight, please join me in hugely thanking this extraordinary team. And I must remind the winners to come down, please, and have a photo taken with this.
And welcome back to the theatre in 21.
Yes.
Woo.